Let's be honest, dealing with a bad boss is at best irritating and at worst can see you leave your job. They say that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. And so in this series, we're going to talk about what you can do if you find yourself in that situation. There's a really simple one-question test you can find out if a boss is a micromanager. Is the team obsessed about clients or customers, or is it obsessed about their boss? If the team is spending loads of time pandering to the boss's needs, doing things that are unnecessary or doing things in the wrong way, just because the boss likes it that way, but often doesn't give you support, help or guidance to let you know what the right process is, that could be a sign that it's a micromanager. These days, with the move to remote working, this may have brought out even more of their tendencies because they can't see you all the time, and so may constantly be messaging you on Slack or emailing, jumping in on Zoom calls, which is kind of unnecessary and irritating. Now, in this video, I'm going to give some examples about when this has happened to me and what I would have wanted to have done. And before I get hate in the comments, I am going to say he because I've only ever worked for male bosses throughout my career, so it's not a gender bias issue. Women are just as bad at this, but just when it happened to me, it was a male who did it. Micromanaging can manifest itself in several different ways. The first is when people can't see the wood for the trees. You may be overwhelmed by low value, transactional type tasks that don't really add value or advance the team strategically, but the boss has always done them that way, wants them done, and it kind of doesn't really add any value. That's because they can't distinguish between the urgent and the important and fail to prioritise what the overall strategic goals for the team. Another sign to look for is if they really tightly control the flow of information in and out of the department. When I was working in retail, I had a boss that I couldn't send an email to any of the trading directors until he'd read it first, and kind of was really obsessive about PowerPoint packs and how they looked, and I got into trouble for sending stuff directly to them. And there was no real reason for that. I was perfectly capable, but he just was really clear that he wanted to have power of veto over everything that went out of the department so that he can maintain his standards. The third sign is someone who doesn't delegate, or when they do, not only delegates the task, but also the way that they want you to do it. They control the process and make you follow steps that they would do, even if that's not the best way or if you've got a different way of working. The fourth sign of a micromanager is someone who requires a written update or reports on everything. Rather than trusting you to get on with a job and just setting a deadline and an outcome, they want minute by minute updates on where you are with things and don't trust you just to get the job done. The fifth sign of a micromanager is someone who doesn't allow you to make decisions. We're all grown-ups at work and therefore we should be able to make decisions. So if it's something that should be within your role or remit and you should be allowed to make a decision but you're not, and they like to control every decision made in the department, that perhaps is a sign they're a micromanager. The final sign of a micromanager is someone who has no clear strategy or plan for the department. They often want to keep things the same and are resistant to change either externally or within your department. Dealing with the day-to-day takes up all their mental capacity and their time, and they don't focus on thinking longer term or the things that might be coming over the horizon. So now you've realised that perhaps your boss is a micromanager, what can you do to address it? Like any human relationship, the key to solving the problem is understanding what the root cause is. So it's sometimes useful to take a step back, observe for a while and see if you can understand what's causing this. This may be harder if you're new into a team and you're trying to work your way through, but it's worth taking some time and just assessing the situation. So the first thing to look for is it something that they do all the time or just under pressure? Many of us under pressure show our worst personality traits, so it may be that there's a pattern when they're feeling pressured or deadlined that their behaviour comes out as micromanaging. So see if you can see a pattern. Does it happen at a certain time of the month or quarter end? Is there kind of a trigger that you can identify about why they might start behaving this way? If this is the case, you can start to systemize the things that they might want or the information that they typically ask for and get ahead of the game. So it's much easier to say to someone, it's already in your inbox, or I'm working on that already, rather than them just dropping it on you last minute. That helps you because you can manage your own time more effectively, but also may help your boss start to relax as they know that they can trust you. As a boss, it's a great feeling when someone proactively sends you an update about a client before a meeting happens, or gets you a report before you need it and without you even having to ask for it. The other way you could perhaps reduce pressure on the team is see if you've got unnecessary meetings or requirements around the busy time. So in the last week of the month, which is a really busy time for us, we plan no face-to-face meetings or team meetings because they can be held at other times, aren't business critical, and just allow people to get on with their work. The second thing to look out for is, do they do it to all team members or just to you? If they do it to all team members, it may be something that's ingrained in their personality, but if it's just to you, then perhaps start to unpick, is it because you're new to the team, you're doing a different type of work, or you've taken on some new responsibilities that have made them a little bit uncomfortable and have perhaps brought out the micromanaging? So if this is the case, there are a number of things you can do. The first, like any human relationship, is to set some boundaries. So understand what you will accept and what you won't accept in terms of micromanaging, and be clear that you push back if you think your boss is being unreasonable. Setting boundaries involves the 3 pillars of a working relationship, which is like, trust and respect. By setting boundaries appropriately with your boss, then that allows them to respect you more and perhaps back off from micromanaging. Speak to them about how they want things done and try to understand what their reasoning is. And if possible, you can perhaps suggest new alternatives or different ways of working rather than just doing it and then perhaps them pushing back about it. If you agree in advance and they agree that the outcomes are more important, then that might stop your boss from micromanaging. Focus on your boss's strengths. As humans, we all tend to focus on the negative, but actually take a step back and think, what is your boss really good at? And if possible, what can you do to help them do more of that and less of the things that they find more anxious? Can you take tasks or responsibilities off them or redistribute them across the team that might help your boss relax and stop being such a micromanager? Agree output goals with your boss. So instead of focusing on process or how you should do things, get your boss to sign up to goals for you, which are more about the output or the outcomes from your work and allow you to have more freedom in how you get on with that work on a day-to-day basis. Act as a leader within your team. You can reallocate workloads, you can prioritise things, and you can help support other team members. This may smooth the general workload of the team and reduce the impact that your boss's behaviour is having on the whole team. One of the best bits of advice I ever got in my career was that you don't have to be the boss to act as a leader. And I think if we all take on a bit more accountability and responsibility, we can help make the workplace a better place for everyone. If perhaps you've watched this video and realised that you're the micromanaging boss, then there are some things you can do. You can ask questions of your team. So instead of dictating or setting out how things want to be done, perhaps open up questions to your team or brainstorm about the best way to do things. The next thing you can do as a boss is to solicit opinions from your team about things that they could do differently, how you could do things differently, and generally things they'd like to see change in the team. Next time you've got a goal or an outcome you want to achieve with your team, instead of you dictating how that needs to be done, create a project and get them to devise the plan and own the outcomes so that they have more accountability and you have delegated that responsibility. And finally, make sure that you increase employee recognition and celebration of their achievement. Instead of everything coming through you, make sure that you're spreading the glory around the team and that you're giving recognition where it's deserved. If you've tried all that and it's kind of failed for you, you might decide that it's time to move on from your bad boss and look for another. So one thing I'd recommend is during your interview process for your next role, ask some questions that might raise red flags for you in terms of understanding if your new boss potentially could be a micromanager. During your interview, ask open questions about their approaches to getting the work done, how they communicate with their team, and anything else that you think might indicate to you that perhaps they've got some micromanaging tendencies. Before you accept a role, you can always ask to have a virtual coffee or a lunch with a team member on that team to understand actually what their boss is like in practice and what their experience is. Leave a comment below if you've ever experienced a micromanaging boss, and I'd love to hear how you dealt with it. I'm Liz, and this is my channel Simplification, where we give you the tips, tricks and hacks to help you navigate your career.